Hello again, everyone. I am John Schroeder, your presenter on the Edgar Cayce Arizona channel, and this topic is how do you compare to people Edgar Cayce told would not have to reincarnate? So I've got 23 people, according to the Edgar Cayce readings, that were told if all went well, this would be their last incarnation. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at that and allow you to compare all of the aspects that we can pull out of the readings to your own to see if this is your last life on this earth. As always, we start with the disclaimer that almost all of the information that you are going to see today is derived from the Edgar Cayce readings, but it is subject to personal interpretation, in this case, mine. If you have any questions about it, feel free to go ahead and type them into the comment section on the YouTube, and I will definitely answer them typically within 24 hours. So if you don't want to do that, you can always go to edgarcayce.org, O-R-G, and you'll be able to do more study in the topic of the Cayce readings directly for yourself. So let me go through the agenda for this presentation. A statistical analysis of their ages, genders, and places of birth. So it's just one slide that allows you to see what the age range and the average age and how many were men, women, and so on. Then we're going to take a look at the astrological analysis of their zodiac or sun signs, as well as the most influential planets in their chart, because Cayce gave a astrological reading every time he was going to do what was called a life reading. And that means that he was going to tell you what your past lives were. And that's was obviously influenced a great deal by astrology, especially the way he presented it. Then, because he does give past lives for the 23 individuals, I'll do an analysis of their most influential past lives as given in the reading. And it turns out that 5 of the 23 had famous past lives as given in the reading for each one of the people. So I'll be just a quick review of the 5 people that were of note, either in history or in the Bible. And then finally, I'll do a recap of the information covered. That's kind of interesting because I'm using, for any of the graphics that you see on this, I'm using artificial intelligence, ChatGPT 4.0, if you wanted to know the specific source. And when I feed all of this information in and give a description that you'll see at the end, it actually renders what that person would look like. Of course, I had them render it back to the 1920s because in the 20s and 30s was when most of these readings were given. So let's get started. As I said, we're going to start with the age and sex and places of birth. There were 23 people, and out of those 23, we had 16 were female and 7 were male. So it seems 16 women to 7 men means just about a 2-to-1 margin of females are more likely to leave the earth than the guys do. Then we had 19 were born as American citizens within one of the states, the United States, and 4 were born in other countries. Now, I do want to say that an inordinate amount, it's not a good sample because an inordinate amount of the people that asked for readings from Edgar Cayce live within the United States to begin with. So whereas this could make it look like Americans are ready to leave the earth sooner than other countries, that would definitely not be true. It's just circumstance. And then finally, the average age. And I computed this in, I don't know if you're a statistician, but mean, median, and mode. That mean means an average like you're used to. A median would wind up picking out the exact middle number, no matter how big the numbers were at the top and bottom or below it, picks out the middle number. And the mode would be the number that comes up most often. Amongst there. So if there were like 5 that all came out to be 45 and the rest of them were just all over the place, it wouldn't matter. The mode would be 45. Don't know if you care about statistics, but that's how they do it. And but the age spread started at 20 years old. That was the youngest person that was told they may not have to return to the earth again. And the oldest was 63 at the time that the reading was given by Edgar Cayce. So that varied along their lifespan as well. So if you're interested in that, that covers the statistical that I could come up with out of the readings. So let's move on to the astrological analysis of their sun signs. As you can see from the text up there, the most common sun sign or zodiac sign was Taurus with 5. Right behind that was Scorpio with 4, Capricorn 3, Aries 3, Cancer 2, and only 1 each for the rest. Of great note is that the only sun sign that was not represented by the zodiac, that means 11 of them were, one or more people falling into those categories, Virgo was not included. So apparently, if you're a Virgo, this is not going to be your last life on Earth, according at least to our statistical study of 23 people. And you can only guess what my sun sign is. It's Virgo. So I'll be doing this presentation not only for the rest of the day, but apparently for another lifetime at least to come. Next up, I'm going to do an astrological analysis of the most influential planets in their chart. The top there, where it starts with Jupiter is 21, Venus 18, Mercury 17, and so on, that header is going to remain as I go through all 7 of the planets that seem to be common, that 2 or more of them had come up in their chart. And I'll be able to tell you a little bit more as we go to each one. So I'll start with Jupiter, and that in the zodiac or in astrology, Sagittarius has the ruling planet of Jupiter for it. Now, as from the Cayce readings, we know that there are always positive and negative traits to like the 7 spiritual centers or chakras within the body. And so I'm going to cover briefly the positive traits and negative traits for each one of the planets, which I don't know if you saw the last video we produced. I talked about what happened in between our earthly lives on Earth. So I go into this in a little more detail if you wanted to go back and look at that video. But if you go to Jupiter, and mind you, 21 of the 23 people in between their previous life and the one currently that they had is a contemporary of Edgar Cayce, wound up having experiences within the realm or dimension of Jupiter. So it seems like if you're going to have your last life on Earth, it's inevitable that you are going to wind up having experiences within Jupiter. Why? What does that handle? On the positive side, you would show yourself to be very optimistic. You would be generous. You would be wise. You would be abundant. And that wouldn't just mean with money. Abundant would be with compliments. It would be with just spreading joy as well as money, and certainly growth as in becoming a better person throughout your life. However, there are always negative traits to each one. So it's possible that you could have overindulgence, you could be excessive or arrogant or irresponsible, and you would visit Jupiter to try to minimize the faults, as the Cayce readings say, so that you would go there to learn how to have these things not so negatively affect you in the life to come. So next up, you see Venus had 18 of the 23 people had experiences on in the dimension or what realm that is represented by Venus. And then the ruling planet of Venus is the ruling planet of the zodiac sign Taurus. And remember, Taurus is the one zodiac sign that had the most, 5 of the 23 were from the, or had the zodiac sign of Taurus, the bull. So in the positive traits, it seems like if this is going to be your last life, you can count on seeing the people be great manifestors of love, beauty, harmony, creativity, and social ability. Sorry about that. And so that you're a very social creature. Or it could be that they were going there to help them overcome the negative traits of indulgence, being lazy, vain, or dependent upon others, counting on them to do for you. So I would tend to think if it's going to be their last life, they're trying to enhance the positive traits, but we don't want to discount the fact that making less of the negative traits that we have developed in our lives is an important aspect of this too. Next up will be Mercury of 17 of the 23. And Mercury is the ruling planet of the zodiac sign Gemini. So if you are spending time in Mercury or in the dimension or realm of Mercury, chances are you are going to be a good communicator. You will have a high intellect. You will be quite a versatile person, maybe a jack of all trades, master of none. You'll be very curious and you'll be quick-witted. So you might be the life of the party with all that. And on the negative side, if you're kind of a nervous or deceitful or superficial person, or you're argumentative with others, Mercury is the place to go to in order to be able to help you to minimize those traits. Moving on to Uranus. Uranus is the ruling planet of Aquarius. The positive traits there are innovation, originality, independence, humanitarianism, and visionary thinking. So you can count on there being, it sounds like very much like leadership, that, these are the things that if you're going to be a strong leader, taking people in new directions and getting them to follow you, that Uranus would be a good place, a good dimension, a good realm to be able to enhance those traits within yourself. And then the negative side, you could have a rebellious spirit. You could be unpredictable and detached and even eccentric. So you're getting to see both sides of the coin when you see what each one of these realms, these dimensions, which are also represented by chakras within the body, as far as how they manifest within us. Next up after that is Mars. This is where we take quite a drop down. Mars only had 7 of the 23 people that had that as the dimension or realm that they needed before they entered their allegedly last life. Notice that we're at least over halfway for the first 4 planets that I covered. Now, Mars is unusual in that it is the ruling planet of 2 of the zodiac signs, one being Aries and the other being Scorpio. Aries is kind of a given as far as that, it was also the god of war. So you either called him Mars if you were, I think, Greek, and Aries if you were Roman, as far as the astrology. But Scorpio is kind of is an aggressive, assertive type of individual. So it is the ruling planet for both of those. On the positive side, if you went there, you needed help or wanted to encourage the following traits. You wanted to be courageous. You wanted to be energetic, innovative, passionate, and assertive. Then there's the negative side of it. If you're going to Mars, you probably need some help with, on the negative side, being aggressive, impulsive, angry, or reckless. Next up will be Neptune. And Neptune is the ruling planet of the sign Pisces. And again, Pisces only had 1 of the people on the list of 23. The positive traits are imagination, spirituality, compassion, idealism, and intuition. So you can count on probably have a good amount of psychic ability, as well as being a very creative and very caring person. On the negative side, you may need help with being confused, or you easily deceive, like gullible, or you deceive others, tend to escape like into video games or reading books excessively rather than in working with other people, or being overly sensitive. So that was 5 people through Neptune. And then finally, Saturn, which only had 2 people of the 23 that were part of it. And Saturn is the ruling planet of Capricorn. Now, there are positive and negative traits to this as well. When you take a look at the positive traits, you would wind up being a very disciplined individual or very responsible, incredibly patient. You would be ambitious, and perseverance would be something that you would be known for. On the negative side, you could be pessimistic, very rigid, always fearful, and just cold to others, unless you had a close circle of friends. So it's a very interesting planet because it is the place that Edgar Cayce mentioned that a soul would go through, and I'll come close to quoting it, to remove all insufficient matter. It would indicate, mind you, in the 3 levels, and the physical is very clear that we have matter. Even in the astral or spirit, mental plane, if you will, there is still a physicality to us. The ghost, if you want to go to a real common term, a ghost actually has some physicality to it. And so if we're getting rid of insufficient matter, it means even in our astral body, there are things that would, like stem cells are the perfect cells, and then the rest of them are, not so perfect. We would go to Saturn in order to be able to get rid of the insufficient matter, which makes up our physical being at that point. So it's an interesting planet. Again, I cover this in greater detail in the previous video of what happens to us between lifetimes. So you might want to go back to that if you have a greater interest in it. So that covers an analysis of the influential planets in the chart. Now we take a look at their most influential past lives. It's not that these were the only past lives that they had, because we've had lots, but what it did was to try to cover the places that had the greatest influence on the current life when they were contemporaries of Edgar Cayce. So in almost all the cases, when you're saying 21 out of 23 had experiences in Egypt, Okay, and notice if you go all the way to the middle left, you see the Sphinx there with the Great Pyramid. I've got a picture up here from artificial intelligence that is depicting each one of the things that are in text in the center. But here I'm showing the Sphinx and the pyramid without it being modern times. So I'm indicating here that this is the time back when the pyramids were built. Edgar Cayce was Rata at the time. His son Hugh Lin was King Ararat. And so you wound up having the incarnations that they're talking about in Egypt are not, in the 1800s. It would be going back centuries before that. That was 21. So chances are you pretty much were in Egypt if this is going to be your last time on Earth. Then the second one down is the USA. That's roughly half, or 11 of the 23. And in the lower left corner there, you just see a map of the United States. Now, mind you, I want to make sure that you understand that this is talking the incarnations then, the 11, were basically from the 1700s on forward, not before that, not the Puritan times, not the Native Americans. It was that they had lifetimes within the 17, 18, 1900s. I remember that one of the people, or a couple of them, were 20 years old at the time that they got the readings, so that they were born within the 20th century. Then the next one is Persia, and that's 8 occasions out of the 23. Just going to the right of the United States, that's a artificial intelligence depiction of the Persian area. Now, mainly that's Iran, but it's also inclusive of Iraq. And you probably heard of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. All of that was part of the Persia area, the area that was called Persia. And, a little better than a third of the people had experiences or past lives in Persia that were having a great effect in the current life when they were contemporaries of Edgar Cayce. The next one is a tie. That means that they either came up having past lives in Atlantis or the Holy Land as 7 of the 23. If you go directly above or just to the right of the Edgar Cayce image there, you'll see a Chat GPT's depiction of what Atlantis looked like, not only according to Cayce, but others, as far as the concentric circles, all being connected by bridges like spokes in a wheel all the way around. So that's obviously not a picture of Atlantis. It's just a depiction made up from artificial intelligence as it had been described by many sources. Also in a tie for 7 is the Holy Land. Now, if you come down to the right of the Persia image, you'll see the Holy Land typically meant that they were alive during, very soon or during or after the time of Christ. Cayce himself was Lucius of Cyrene, who is a well-known pundit of early Christianity. And that actually came after the time of Jesus, when he came into his home there. So the Holy Land is just being around the time of Christ as far as the people that were there then. The picture is hard to tell, but that's actually the temple at the Dome of the Rock that's inside of Jerusalem. But because it's going back to ancient times, as the Holy Land would have been 2,000 years or more ago. So we have the Holy Land depicted with the Dome of the Rock temple being built and not really having the whole city of Jerusalem that's walled in around it. It's all empty space. So that's why you're seeing it like that. We had a tie for the next level. I guess that would be 5th, and that would be the countries of France and England. 6 incarnations each, as far as counting them out of the members of the 23. Directly above the one there for the Holy Land is France. It's a little misleading because it's showing the Eiffel Tower there, and a number of the readings were going back to the 14, 15, 1600s, even 1700s, and I believe the Eiffel Tower didn't come along till the 1800s. But it's making it clear that it's France, because I don't think you would have picked it up just from the design of the river right there without it. So I left it and said, yeah, that's close enough. Also, with 6 occasions, people had influential past lives in England. That's a little easier to pick up because if you're familiar with the London Bridge, that's sitting there just outside of London. And again, where that is somewhere around 1500 and forward, not ancient England by any means. So it was more current times there. And finally, Greece came in last of this list. There were others, but they were like one-offs from the remaining. And Greece was 5. And you're seeing a depiction of the Parthenon and some of the surrounding buildings. If you've ever been to Greece, you know that the Parthenon definitely is up there in the top of the hill, but there are other buildings that are down lower that are in ruins, but you can still see that it was not too far away set up from what you're seeing right there in the picture. So you're able to see where your past lies. If you're aware of any, you'd be able to compare them to this list and go, if you were in Egypt, if you're in the USA and so on, you would probably have matched up with the people that this is their last incarnation on life. That leaves us with the famous people that I was talking about, that there were 5 of them out of the 23. And I do have depictions or AI pictures of each one of them around. The starting in the upper left-hand corner is obviously Achilles of the Trojan War fame. And then you move over to the right, Oliver Cromwell, if you're familiar with English history, he was a rather well-known politician and I'd say soldier, but he was definitely a leader, more like a general of the English army in all of their political problems back in those days. And then the third one on the top row still is Mary Magdalene, who was a member of the Group 1 study group that Edgar Cayce did for the developing the Search for God material. And Mary Magdalene was one of the people within that group. In fact, I think, I can't be sure of this, I think 5 of the people on this list were also members of the study group, of that first study group that Edgar Cayce put together. Mary Magdalene is the only one you would know by name as a follower of Jesus. I mentioned earlier that Ra-Ta, the sun god in Egyptian mythology, was definitely one of the past incarnations of Edgar Cayce. And so that's he was probably best known for that. And then finally, one that's not all that well known is Judith. But back in the 1930s, Edgar Cayce started talking about Judith as being the leader of the Essenes. And remember, the first 12 years or so, Jesus was either in hiding or growing up in Nazareth. And so he would often go to nearby, it's nearby as far as how a car drives, Mount Carmel, which was an enclave or conclave of the Essene community. And it's fascinating to see it. I've been able to go over to the Holy Land and walk through the area. It's a wonderful place. And he would go over there, and Judith, being the leader of the Essenes there, was one of the main teachers of Jesus in his early years. So when Jesus was teaching in the temples, it's very likely that he was getting the same information that he was passing on to the rank and file people in the temple from Judith, the female leader, which was so unusual at the time. By the way, this was disputed by many people until I think it was 1947 that the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in Qumran. And once they were, and it was until the 1950s that they found out by being able to decipher the scrolls that they indeed did have Judith and females as leaders of the Essene community. So it's not really a prediction by Cayce, but it was one of the things where they go, well, Casey's absolutely wrong. No way were there women in charge of the Jews back then. And it turned out he was not only right, but named it right to the name. And then we have the one I was talking about where we recap the information. So I'll just read it as you, if you want to follow along or take a look at the details of the picture off to the left that AI developed out of this information on the right. Using the Cayce readings as a guide, a typical person who is living their last life on Earth is currently a 45-year-old female who was born in the USA, who is probably a homemaker. Their astrological sign is Taurus, and they are most influenced by Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury as the planets in the zodiac. And it's almost assured they had a past life in Egypt. And they were not famous in history or in the Bible. So if you take a look at the picture, I did tell the artificial intelligence to give us a depiction of who that person would be if it were in the 1920s. Now, she doesn't look like she's 45, but that's what AI does. It keeps coming up with things and has a real tough time trying to spell things. if you look at that thing really close, it's not really everything in there is not spelled correctly, and I don't know when they're going to fix that. But I thought it was fascinating to be able to get an image of what a person would look like based on the information there. And as always, if you would like to contact us, as I said, I look forward to answering questions that you have or responding to comments, even if it's just do a thumbs up in the comment section of the YouTube video as you're watching here. You can even get a PDF copy of this presentation if that would help you. I'm glad to email it to you because there's nothing on here that's copyrighted. We never try to make money off of all of this. It's just here as a service. And if you have any other reason to contact us, request to make, contact us at edgarcayceaz@gmail.com. And we thank you so much for joining us.